Hey everybody, this is PD from the Spinner Rack, and today I decided to do Superman, The Man of Steel by John Byrne and Dick Giordano, right? So we have one of the trades, and I think the first trade, and I would have loved to do this through the trade, but it's hard to open up the pages, and this one's interesting. This one is the actual comic book chopped up into a trade and packaged with a new cover, right? It still has the newsprint and the actual covers, and then back plate of all the covers, and some more ads, right? And just to do my normal rant on, trying to reproduce the full color process in these reprints, whereas you got Dark Knight has those glorious thing. Now you have to imagine Man of Steel was reprinted a whole lot of times, but the whole full color process, anything as far as the inks, none of that stuff was good in the consideration, right? So it's just like obliterate the full color process and put out a new volume, which I don't think helped out what was here, right? That gives you a quick overview of my complaints about, some of the reprints. Because I think there's at least 4 printings of Man of Steel, and then this one, which was a different format. So you had all of this, the sales just like the Dark Knight, but as far as the, with the prestige format, the amount of printing made that immediately a hot seller, right? And DC wasn't really that. This one they printed well more because it was, I think Man of Steel had the variant cover, and this one I think sold. This one sold up to 1 million in comics at the time. Hadn't been done in years, right? Since the 40s. So, with that said, there is an interview by Byrne that was in Sci-Fi Wire. We talked about his unreasonable demands, some of his ideas on that. So I guess my idea is to give you guys a little more about the reboot, right? So Crisis was happening, Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, and the plan was to reboot everything. But once Crisis was done, there were no plans in place, right? So, but the plan was to allow some people to pitch ideas for Superman. And one of the first was Frank Miller. Frank Miller with Steve Gerber. They had a plan on basically the DC Triumvirate. There's going to be a Superman series. There was just titled Man of Steel. Then they also had Dark Knight. And then they had Amazon, right? And their Man of Steel's plans, which would try to get Superman back to his man of the people type roots, and they didn't go with that, but obviously Frank Miller continued on with his Dark Knight. They also got a pitch from Cary Bates. And Cary Bates, his initial plan was to have Superman die a heroic death, saving millions of lives. And he'd be out of commission for, I don't know for how long, but he'd be resurrected. And then this new Superman would be a little more mortal than he was, but it would be keeping the present continuity. They would kind of reformat Superman from that period on. So, and that one wasn't picked up. We have in this one, did they talk about it when we have the round table? We got Keith Giffen and Marv Wolfman. We have Marv Wolfman, who basically wanted to get back to the Fleischer cartoons and the Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster Superman. And, he wanted to do a reboot, as did Frank Miller and Steve Gerber, right? But as nothing came of it, he mentioned to Byrne that, hey, they're looking to reboot Superman. Byrne has said many times, Dick Giordano said, put your money where your mouth is. But then in this interview, Amazing Heroes, he just invited Dick Giordano over, and then Dick Giordano said, tell me about Superman. Jeanette Kahn only vetoed or had questions about one of them, which Byrne was her idea for Krypton to actually, the radiation would be kryptonite that was killing the Kryptonians. And then they started putting out the releases, this being one, a press release for the series.
Writer-artist John Byrne is the man responsible for forging this new improved Man of Steel. The first comic books hit the newsstands on the 4th of July, and John is here to give us a sneak preview. Will he still be able to leap tall buildings in a single bound?
Oh, he'll be able to leap considerably higher than tall buildings, yes.
However, there are going to be limitations.
Yes, we are cranking him down quite a bit.
So within the talks, they were trying to figure out who was going to work on the other titles, and Jerry Ordway was always in play to do a Superman title, and the talks was that he was going to do it with Alan Moore. I don't know if Alan Moore pitched a Superman thing for DC, but he was definitely, they definitely talked to him about it. It was said, that's what Jerry Ordway said, right? So, with all that said, as soon as the note that Byrne would be doing Superman and they were going to change Superman and history would be gone and stuff like that. I believe this Who's Who I guess this Who's Who came out around the same time, right? And this is the cover. I don't think Byrne likes this cover, but I do. But then we have the Earth 2 Superman and we have the new classic Superman, right? That's specific for me saying that for Who's Who, because they have a definite way of talking about Crisis and not including Crisis in some of these people's things. So we have a Wayne Boring and Jerry Ordway Superman drawing here, and then not Swamp Thing. We got the Kurt Swan and Byrne Superman, right? So I think in the rumor mill, there's talk of, Byrne. The thing is that once it came out that Byrne was doing it, it seemed like he just came in, kicked the door open, took Superman from DC, and they couldn't do anything about it. He was just going to change what he was going to change. But at the same time, Byrne is a big fan of Kurt Swan. So you can see there's a picture of the two of them, of Kurt Swan handing the pencil over to Byrne, right? Like handing the baton over. Byrne also brought him back to do the Earth Stealers. And I think Superman, Action Comics 600. And ultimately he would start doing, I think, the action inserts. So, and Byrne, once he realized that he wasn't going to be able to do Superman the same way George Perez was doing Wonder Woman, where it just start from scratch, he was like, oh, if that was the case, I would have kept Superboy. And I would have done it with Kurt Swan doing the pencils, right? So I think that covers all of the pre-stuff. So we'll have another last 2 minutes for Man of Steel. But, okay. So with all of that said, I just want to point out some things when we get to this, right? So this is what the video is going to mainly be about, right? So with that said, this is one of my favorite comics. I was so glad because of his 50th birthday that they reprinted this. A nice, I think this, so let's keep this here, right? One of the other things I love that Superman's origin was in one page, right? And then Batman, he would have his origin a little bit later. but his would be one page also, right? So one of the things that I think no one says with this reboot was that Byrne was be kind of drawing from the past. Even though he'd be looking to the future, comic books always at times and can be repeating stuff from old material and stuff like that, re-energizing stuff, similar to when Frank Miller was on Daredevil with Roger McKenzie. So Byrne wouldn't just steamroll everything, even though it seemed like that. He would draw on some inspiration from the past and adding it to that. So when you go through these Man of Steel things, it wouldn't be just drawing from the Silver Age or the Golden Age or the movie. It would be trying to get pieces of all of that stuff. And you see that as you go through the run, there would be bits of stuff that would show up in this series from all parts of his mythos, right? And one of the things would be here on this cover, right? So here, I think I found this out on the Byrne board, so it's always good to check that out. This spaceship, the redesign, is kind of a modification of the Superman cover #1. The egg sort of shape right here and that sort of thing. So he kind of stylized it so you could draw that in. So that was one of the cool things I found out many years later, right? And we open this up. Now, we get here, this is what had to happen. Krypton had to be updated and redesigned, even though they brought it back to the headbands, the basketball headband Kryptonians. They had to do it because, well, it's a reboot, so there has to be some change. And at the same time, it just needed to be updated and not be a little bit less Flash Gordon and something that could be like sort of timeless in the future. Sort of like the way they do Star Trek. So you can look at it and say, okay, yeah, this still works. This still looks futuristic to me. And this is what, it might be, what was that? I guess it'd be 30 years ago, right? Like a little bit more than that, 35 years ago? Oh, crazy. But anyway, so here we open up now. Since he was redesigning this, I think this is similar to a Sid Mead illustration, but it's put instead of where it's on a desert, right? And I think when people saw this, for some reason, instead of looking like a desert, they thought it was, Superman movie. Look at that. This looks exactly like it, even though Superman movie was a nice planet, right? So, and then they had globes and that stuff, right? So actually, we see this, and this is the incubation, egg for our young Kal-El, right? And we see Jor-El. We see a very cold sort of Krypton, and Jor-El's a little out of the box, right? But it's sad. And these outfits, even though they're not exactly the same, they draw inspiration from Morton Hack. That's the costume designer for the space guys in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, right? The guys that were struggling with radiation. And that's kind of what this was, inspired by, at least this sort of thing down here, but he's turning it more into a robe type of deal. So yeah, it still stayed kind of timeless, that you could look at this and say, oh, it doesn't look 50s or 40s or stuff like that, right? And of course, here, Jor-El's a little unorthodox because they don't really, he's not supposed to take the baby out of the area with all the babies, the gestation chambers. And then, but Jordan says it's right. But she's like, hey, no one's used any of these roles. And we're talking about this cold world where Krypton isn't about to survive, and everyone's kind of reserved in that it's just going to happen, right? So Laura's getting up to speed, saying that this thing's happening, people dying, but he's gonna he's gonna give his son a life, an experienced life, not like Kryptonians, right? That's gonna be his gift. And she's like, nope, our son is not child. It's gonna journey through hyperspace, right? He has a plan, gonna send him to Earth, and they had a, man was bare skinned to the elements. And then Laura sees this and she's totally not with it, right? But he said no. But him, the yellow sun will, give him powers. She immediately thinks he'll be king there, perhaps. And they prepare the spaceship, but at the same time, the planet is going. And that's when he ships his son off. And Jor-El starts talking that talk, letting her know that he's always found her. He was always into her. And we had this moment, even though it's cold for them. He tells her he loves her. And we get a little storytelling bit. Something hits the ship and then it blasts out of there. And this was the biggest shock. As a kid, I was like, whoa, this is a big change. Like, I like the redesign, but it's like, how? And that's one of the things of the reboot was like, since we kind of knew what Superman was, and we saw stuff that was different, it was kind of like, what's going on here? How could he do this? Right? And also, I think there is Harlan Ellison, who was also saying, he had an article where he just basically said Byrne just came and took over and did all this stuff, asked for a new #1, and told DC to cancel his long-running title so he could have his own #1 of Superman. But that's neither here nor there, right? So Clark Kent is a football player, so now it's not the Superman movie, which is what he had to do. He couldn't just say he's following the Superman movie. There will be bits in this series that will be like the Superman movie, but this is not one of them, right? But this is also similar to the Bronze Age. I think it's the Bronze Age, or the end of the Silver Age, where Clark Kent lost his powers, and he immediately went to a regular life, people into him, and he would be a person who was attractive, right? So this is kind of playing to that. If he's not, if he just thinks of himself as a regular person, he would be, with his height and build, he'd be a pretty successful guy as far as meeting people and stuff like that, right? And that's how they portrayed him for one issue. And then, of course, he goes back to being meek, and Lois is kind of bothered with it. But here, we have the setup. We have Lana, right? And then we have his father, right? And tells him to go. And then he says he's disappointed, right? He's going to show him something, right? So we see that his future could lie. And I think this is probably why people decided that Superman's a total idiot in his present day, because he played football. But, that's neither true, right? So there's a surprise. He has to show his father's showing him something, and it's actually the spaceship he traveled in. Now, if he was in like this sort of, gestation thing, this incubator, this thing that was, carrying him as a baby, until he was pretty much born here, right? Because they never took him out of it. He would be an anchor baby, right? This is one of the cool things. And I think this is why Byrne wanted to bring Laura to Earth, so she could be like an immigrant coming across. So this is interesting. Whereas Superman is they always talk about him being an alien, but he's actually, he has the right to citizenship. This is one of the cool bits that's never talked about, right? Because everyone jokes about him being an illegal alien when he's not, at least not in the reboot, right? So then he tells them what actually happened, right? They saw this come down. They went to check it out, and they see it's a baby, right? And they get him. Then Martha gets the baby at the spaceship, and he doesn't know what it could be. And she said, no, they've been reading too many magazines. Take the baby home, and and then there's a blizzard, and then they surprise them saying they have a baby, right? Now, this is very different than the origin here, when he already had clearly powers, which everyone say, hey, if he did this, everyone would know. No black, look, they already, look at the stuff he's doing here in the orphanage, right? You don't even know how he got to the Kents here, right? So let's keep going, right? So as a baby, he was pretty normal, meeting Lana here, and then too many L's in the Superman series. And walking, he gets trampled, and he's actually like, this is a great shot. You know, kids are tough for most comic artists. There's some that John Bogdanow, he's a great one. June Brigham, Brett Belvins, who else? I guess Bob McLeod. But some of the harder artists, it's kind of hard for them to do kids. But there's shots that are really cool, like this. Those ones are cool. This one's, you know, but who knows? And then there's the next lifting stuff. He has signs of his powers. And then he knows all of this, right? So you're an American citizen, but you got responsibilities. And he goes up to the spaceship. We get the first signs of kryptonite, right? So this is one of the things to say that it's not an actual Marvelization of Superman. It's not taking away the kryptonite and dealing with his weaknesses, his feet of clay, right? And you could say maybe the football thing is a feet of clay, but he's just being normal, right? And he gets weak, and then he goes away. Now, this is a hint to something that will lead later in what's the name? In the regular series, right? Then we have this here, and this is one of the things that Byrne wanted to really play with, which he doesn't talk about a lot, but he talks about in general, that one of the things that he wanted to be known for is doing moments of quiet drama. So we have this dramatic scene here, but then we have, they didn't tell him the whole truth, but they're still been his parents, and it didn't turn like a way it is in the movies where he's like, how could you, and runs out. But he has to think about some things, right? And he has to see someone. So we don't know who that someone is yet, right? So now we get to exposure, right? And Martha's been building this scrapbook of all stuff. Even the Titanic has been raised, which I don't think he should have done. And also, even though this was supposed to be Dick Giordano, I think it's Frank Lawton, he said, he told Byrne that he inked most of this. He said that Dick Giordano did maybe some of the Batman pages, right? But then, see, now this is actually supposed to be the Challenger, but since, of course, there's a Challenger disaster, they changed it into the space plane, right? Because obviously with Byrne, there's been too many things that he's drawn and destroyed as a comic book guy, having an unlimited budget, then winds up something happening to those buildings. So I think something happened to Tokyo when they, had Moses Magnum doing something to Tokyo, right? He would slip in a little bit of Frank Miller lighting here, right? And my brother used to make fun of this. They all wanted a piece of me, right? So a plane hit into the space plane. Superman had no time to not be obvious, and this is an important thing as a hero, to just make the choice, screw your identity. And this is a great opening shot to see Lois. Kind of fell for her in 2 seconds when I met her here, right? So ultimately, Superman is helping him out, helps him land the plane. He runs and he meets Lois, and they have a moment. And there's some sort of connection between the two of them. That she's a take charge person, and then they get attacked by everybody. And Superman runs off. And his father has an idea, right? And then this was a shock, right? The S is not a Kryptonian symbol. It's an S. And this is what I argue with my cousin a whole lot about. He's like, no, it hasn't. I think that was a Marlon Brando thing, that he wanted the S on his character, that they would have these symbols and he would have the S. And that was what Superman would take. And then, of course, it would also mean Superman, right? So then this somehow became the symbol L, and this is what people really lost, the saying that, no, this has to be the symbol of L, right? And then, of course, they changed it to Hope, right? So, and this is a great part, having his parents make this. Now, one of the things that the fans and people, they would thought, oh, okay, Superman is just going to come home and they're going to help him through his thing. And this would be about the only time they actually, talked something out and kind of helped him. And one of the tricks that Byrne would do in his thing was he would give you the change, like showing you that he would slick his hair back and put on glasses. But this would be the last time he would slick his hair back. Like he just put the glasses on and he wouldn't look like this hair here. It wouldn't. So it was interesting to see how, and that's one of the things that you could see in maybe some points in the early comic, but definitely in the George Reeves Superman. There's points where Clark Kent takes off his glasses and nobody recognizes him as Superman, which is how you're supposed to play it. You're not supposed to sit around there going too far with he's looking like, was it Carl Bent in Mad Magazine, to make himself look different, because that's a Mad Magazine trope, right? And this is great, having a mother who's that supportive of him and getting the boots on, right? And this is a shocker. The Kents made it out the story. I was like, wow. And then we have someone here, which I think they said is Lana. Sorry, there's Lana in the book and Laura. So see how long this was? Oh, so since I got here, right? And then they tell you on what's going to come next. All the different covers. Obviously, I was like, can't wait for the Batman. And of course, we got a punch here. But since this was kind of, what would you say, not as action-packed as some of what Byrne was doing over at Marvel, one of the things that the new Teen Titans was playing with was the day in the life, right? So they were, where Marvel would have this, but they would sometimes try to work in an action scene. So my last bit, and seeing how sedate this was, even though the art is nice and it's a fun thing. One of the things that being able to play at DC was that the Teen Titans could do a detective story without a fight in it, that sort of thing. They could just have, heavy drama is Donna Troy meeting her family. That's what the Titans was really playing with, where George Perez could do a wedding where there's no action in it at all. So one of the things that is cool is that he got to do a different approach to this and not Marvelize it, or not have all of the Marvel elements in there. He was able to do what the DC of '84 was trying to do, saying that, that they were the next stage. So he was able to play with this, with Superman and DC and not go overboard with the action. Just do a nice, simple setup story, which we have with a little bit of drama, but he was really playing with the quiet drama moments here. So yeah, this is the first issue. I think I got all of the bits out for that. I just already showed you some of the things that were to come, which we know, but that'll be the other covers. But it would lead to 3 Superman titles, and a new interest into the books, which regretfully sad to say, looking at the sales were pretty much were really down, even for 3 titles, which was Superman Action and DC Comics Presents. So even if you total all that up, in comparison to Marvel is really, so I mean, just at some point, book titles need new blood. The idea would be, okay, just get a cool artist. But the hard part is you had Alan Moore doing the last issue, and fans still were kind of iffy on Alan Moore doing the last issue, but fans being iffy on Kurt Swan after that. They're like, retailer said, I bought less of the Earth Stealers because Kurt Swan was drawing it. And a lot of people say, well, why did Byrne do in the Prestige format with the Earth Stealers and Kurt Swan? And it's just like, what? Like, this guy just did the Superman. Last Superman was for whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow. So there we go. We got the first issue done in about a half hour, right? The other issues should go a lot quicker, but I'll decide if we should do more issues. Oh yeah, last bit. I think there was something where they were talking about no one used this at DC. They struck this layout out of their books, right? No one else used this, but know who else used this? New Mutants in '98. Where they had Deadpool, I think Gideon, and I think Domino, where they had a border, but then they had the faces of the New Mutants there, right? So I guess that's the last bit. I think I got all my initial bits for Man of Steel, and the rest of the things will just be rolling. All right, Spin Rack out.